Welcome back to the Football Terrace. I'm joined by Jessica Black this afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm kind of partly enjoying the kind of downturn of having no football, but also a little bit sad that there's no football. I'm always like this during the international break. It's always a bit of a conundrum for me. But apart from that, I'm all good. How about yourself?
Well, I'm fine.
Oh yeah, I saw you. I mean, how are you coping with no football though? That's the question.
Oh, I'm good. Sometimes I enjoy the international breaks, get a little break from having to overthink about Arsenal. So I feel good about it. I actually enjoy international break.
Yeah, do you know what? When your club is like up and down and in between, it definitely feels like that.
Mm, yeah.
Viewers, what we're doing today is something a little bit different. We haven't done this before on the terrace. We're doing a little bit of a report card, like our clubs are at school. That's what we're going to be doing today. The big six we're going to be looking at and reviewing and giving our thoughts and feelings, how they started, what's going well, any problems, any shocks, anything along those lines, and then grading them. I'm grading them like, oh, I don't know what you get in school anymore, but like we're doing old school, like A, B, C, D, right
Can
down
we
to
do
F. How we
pluses and
get it done.
minuses?
Yes, absolutely. You can be a C plus or a C minus, all those things. And I have put United boring, and we'll get onto that in a moment. The football is definitely boring. We'll get onto that a little bit later. You can have your say, but make sure you've smashed the like button. That's very, very important for us that you do that. Viewers, though, we want to be a little bit led by you today as well. So we ask you to super chat in questions and stuff like that. But if there's any subject around these clubs that you want Jess and I to discuss, super chat them in. So anything you want us to speak about Arsenal, like I want this specific subject on Arsenal discussed, or this specific thing about Chelsea discussed, super chat it in, and we will feed that into the agenda. So as I always say, it might be my stream, but it's your show. So make sure you get that done. We have a loose agenda that we're going to follow anyway, but it can be changed by yourselves. It's very, very important that we listen to what you've got to say anyway. So feel free to get those super chats in and tell us what you'd like us to speak about. But the first club that I think we're going to start with, Tottenham to begin with. I think Tottenham's a nice club, a fairly, well, not neutral for you really, but a neutral club for me anyway to start with. How do you feel they've started really? You know, they won their first three, lost the next three, and then they won again before the international break. They're a couple of points off of fourth place. The fans are not happy with the football and all that jazz. But how do you think Spurs have done?
Oh, I think they're pretty much what I would have expected coming off of the back of, the Jose Mourinho situation, interim with the kid, Ryan Mason, I think his name was, and then hiring Nuno, even though that clearly wasn't their first choice, and then having the Harry Kane saga go throughout the transfer window. When you have your main player, your talisman, your captain, I mean, he's not really their captain, Lloris is, but you get what I mean. Your main guy clearly flirting with another team, it's hard to get the group together after that. So I think all things considered, and with, me having an agenda against them just because they're Spurs, I would say that winning 4 and losing 3 is not bad when you're clearly in some sort of turmoil. You could have looked at them against us and thought, is Nuno going to last, to the next game? They didn't look like they were even interested in playing for him. So I think Nuno's a good manager. I don't know if he's a long-term fit. I don't know if they're going to get him his players and all of that. It seems very inconclusive at this point, but I think you have to take some confidence from what you've seen from Son. I think he's kind of held that team down in Harry Kane's absence, if that's what you want to call it. So I would say being in turmoil and being a team, from my experience, having a main player wanting to be out and you still able to win more of your games than you've lost, that's the most that you can expect. I know that they want pretty free-flowing football and all of that, but right now you just have to kind of get through the tough period. I think they've done okay to do that, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the disappointing thing for me is that they got the Harry Kane situation wrong. Some people say Nuno was the wrong appointment, but it does turn out now that they've actually got a foul safe. They can sack him this forthcoming summer, no payout. Essentially, they bought Nuno in as an interim. He's literally in as an interim manager. That is exactly what he's there for. So that isn't the worst appointment in the world, considering they couldn't land any of their main targets. They had to have a manager. So as soon as I heard that, I thought, okay, I kind of get why you've done it. But the Harry Kane thing is the big disappointment and surprise. Like one of the things that I want to talk about both clubs, the biggest surprise and biggest disappointment. And that is the Harry Kane saga. They got the Harry Kane saga so wrong. So wrong. It's unbelievable. They should have sold him. They should have cashed in. They should have then reinvested that money in. Not only could they have signed Lautaro Martinez,
they need a creative midfielder, another midfielder.
But they could have stopped. They could have stopped Chelsea from getting Lukaku. They could have signed Lautaro Martinez as a replacement. They could have put some of the money towards a creative midfield player, as you mentioned. They could have killed like two birds with one stone and had a happier squad. Like the best I saw Spurs play this season was the first 2 games when Harry Kane weren't even involved. So
it disrupts everything. It does. Yeah. And you're right. Like I think I said it on here that I prefer them keep Kane. I was very worried if they had, sold him, because then you have 150 million to your disposal, and that could bring you 3 really, really good players in, and they have a decent director of football. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy that they've done that, because as long as you have your main player agitating and wanting to leave, you'll always have a little bit of turmoil going on in your camp. And that's good from an Arsenal perspective, but from a Spurs, I can see them doing this quite a bit until he goes.
I agree. What would you grade them? What would you grade Spurs' start? How would you grade it yourself?
Like just a straight up C, just right down the middle. They haven't been able to really score goals. That's a big issue, especially when you have Son and Kane in your team. You should be scoring more. If you think about it, they were rampant last season and they're not really hitting those. I mean, Son is still doing well, but again, they're pretty much split, 3 losses, 3 wins, not playing good football, kind of in a little bit of a weird situation. So I would just say a straight up C is decent. I mean, I don't think who had high expectations for them coming into this season based on what happened over the summer, Jose Mourinho and all of that. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to be, pulling up trees. So I think a C is perfectly fine for them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. A C is I think is a very good grade for them, all things being considered. We have a super chat here from Harris who says, "Can Jess admit that Chelsea is a bigger club than Arsenal?"
Nope. Sorry to disappoint you.
Just quickly on that, what makes Arsenal a bigger club in your opinion? What makes them bigger than Chelsea?
I think we've done this one, haven't we? I mean, for me, the bigger club is just in terms of, I know where this is probably coming from. I think Chelsea have more Twitter followers now than Arsenal, so they're excited about that. But I just think overall, just historically, we're a bigger club. I still think we have a bigger worldwide fan base. I just do. I think that we've just been relevant a little bit longer than them. And I know that we've been irrelevant, but really, I just think we just are. Like, it's hard to explain. Bigger, they're definitely in a better run of form. Let's be real. They're a better team, better squad, better club right now. But I think bigger, still Arsenal is just a bigger name overall. And that's all we really have to cling on to. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I would rather be the better, which is what's funny to me about Chelsea fans. I feel they have like this weird desperation to be bigger, than Manchester United, Liverpool, and Arsenal. And we're obviously the lowest on the totem pole. So they're like grabbing for us. But if you ask yourself, would you rather be the bigger or the better? I think you'd rather be the better. So why do you worry about being the bigger? It's just me.
There we go. There's a comment here from Sass who says, "Why aren't we talking about Kante like we do Salah? I know he's been a bit inconsistent. However, he's the only player to win all 3 big titles that the world has to offer. Ronaldo and Salah won the Premier League and Champions League. Pogba won the World Cup. And there's Kante except Henry." Do you know what I would say to that, mate? It's a really good point. There is a bias that goes into these conversations. Attacking players always dominate because they're the entertainers. It's a widely regarded, I'm not sure if it's a fact, but definitely an opinion within football. And football people will say this: scoring goals is the hardest thing to do. Scoring goals is the hardest thing in football. According to most football men and women, that's what they'll say. So it always dominates the limelight more than a defensive midfielder, more than a centre back, more than a. I remember having this debate years ago. I was like, surely when David De Gea was at his pomp, I was like, David De Gea is as good a goalkeeper as Messi is an attacker. And people are like, yeah, but no one really cares. And that's the point. It's remember when Jamie Carragher said that no kid grew up wanting to be the next Gary Neville. That's just the issue. Every now and then you'll get a player I remember when Owen Hargreaves, this was in around 06 after the World Cup in 06, I was playing Sunday League football. For about a year, everyone wanted to play the Owen Hargreaves role because there was a summer where everybody raved about that holding midfield role and how important it was. Within a year, everyone went back to wanting to be wingers and strikers again and number 10. And then there was a little period where everybody wanted to be a number 10. And that's gone again. And everyone now wants to be strikers and wingers again. So that's the only reason, mate. It's the popular role is most definitely those attackers.
It's a thankless job. That CDM role really is. It gets just thrown around, and sometimes they don't get the love that they deserve, but it's true. They don't play in the fun positions. So
it's true. And they are, I always say this, those players, the Michael Carricks, the Kantes as examples, they're the gravy on the roast dinner. Without it, the team doesn't work, but they're not the fun part. You don't leave the restaurant saying like the gravy was your favorite bit. It's always the meat, it's the potatoes, it's the veg. But without the gravy, none of it actually works. But it's never the star. It's never the star. That's why. But great question. Keep the super chats coming in, ladies and gentlemen. Smash that like and share button. Brent says, AF Arsenal lack creativity. Party needs a creative partner. And that's probably a great segue, actually, from that super chat there from Brent into Arsenal. Arsenal, the next club we're going to touch on the show today. How would you rate and grade Arsenal's start to this season?
It's very similar to Spurs to me, but the difference is that we're not supposed to be in turmoil. Do you know what I mean? Spurs is in turmoil. Like they have something going on, a big issue with their main player. We're a little bit like, we weren't supposed to start the season like that. I mean, if you had spread those games out, the Chelsea and the Man City game, and they came later on in the season and you said that we lost them, you wouldn't have been surprised. But I think it's just the way and the manner and all of that. We knew we were going to lose those games, but it's just the way, So I think we've just started a little bit. It's like for me, there's, it's that one meme where you have like the guy with all the question marks just popping around their head, like around his head. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like a GIF. And that's kind of how I feel about Arsenal. Like if you ask me, like, how do I feel? It's just a bunch of question marks. I feel almost like incomplete would be the best grade to give. Like incomplete, because we started off really bad and then we played 3 games and we won them, and not against great opposition, but I don't think that always matters because those are games that you're supposed to be winning. And for most good teams, if they find a way to win a game, even if they're not playing great, it's usually heralded for other teams. I don't know why it's not for us. It's just so meh, like, you know what I mean? So if I had to grade it, I would give it like a C- ish. I would say it has to be worse than Spurs because we're not meant to be in turmoil. We're not meant to lose 3 games on the bounce. Like, you know what I mean? So C-.
I think a C- is fair. Like what I used to describe them in the tweet I put out was Jekyll and Hyde. I've seen some brilliant things and some awful things. And something that's really stood out to me, and I know it's triggered a lot of Arsenal fans that watch the show or kind of follow me on socials, is I've been too unfair. There shouldn't be the expectations on Arsenal that there is on other big clubs because they're in a rebuild. And I get it to a point and to a degree, but we saw it. The opening 3 games were awful, and all I saw was a plethora of excuses. Then there was this social media push for the season starts at Norwich, and because you won 3 on the bounce, people were like legit. Just no. We've only played 3 games this season, Terry. We haven't lost 3. We've won 3. It was almost like they convinced themselves that the season started against Norwich, and I shouldn't care because I'm a rival, but I did because I talk football, and it was like Norwich aren't that great. Your goalie was brilliant against Burnley, and then Spurs were just so bad. Like, you were good. You were very good. But Spurs were also really bad. You then play Brighton, a well-oiled team, a well-coached team, and you saw the difference again. And it isn't that you hadn't improved and you didn't deserve praise in those 3 games. But I don't know where Arsenal are. You know, the most impressive thing, I think, this season has been some of the new players. So I've quite liked seeing Ben White so far. I think Tomiyasu's been excellent. Ramsdale's been amazing. He was one of my picks yesterday to potentially be one of the signings of the season. At the same time, I'm still seeing very inconsistent performances. I'm still seeing too much of a reliance on some of your young players. And I understand the necessity to buy youth, but I still think an elder statesperson needed to be bought. And maybe that's a January deal. Maybe that's something you try and do in January to add a bit more steel. But yeah, it's very Jekyll and Hyde for me. It's very up and down. And the jury's out. I mean, it can go anywhere. You guys could really improve and push for top 4. You could equally remain where you are in 10th or 11th. Like, I can see both those things happening quite simplistically.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all fair. It's all fair. I just think that you can't ignore. I mean, I think the thing is, you can't ignore the fact that the team that we played and the group of players that played in them first 3 games are not even near what we're playing with now. And I still think that there's some inconsistencies in the way that we're playing in the last 4 matches with that group. You know, they're not perfect. I don't think anybody thinks that they're perfect. We know that in some of the games we've got lucky. That's kind of how football goes. You get a little bit of luck. But ultimately, I think when you see that group of players play together, you think there's something there, but there needs to be improvement still. It's not the end product. I don't think anybody thinks that that's where we should end. I think we all know that we need a striker. We already know we're going to get a striker. Lacazette will go. We'll get a striker. And I don't think it's going to be a 21-year-old. It definitely has to be somebody over the age of 23. No more under 23s. We still need a midfielder. So knowing those things and knowing that those positions will come, I feel you can feel a little bit more at ease when you watch this young group of players be inconsistent, because that's what they kind of do. But there still needs to be improvement, you know?
No, I agree. And do you know what it is for me? If I was to like round it up, you are not as good. You're not as good a team as as to how you performed against Tottenham, but you're not as bad as how you performed against Brentford. I think there's an in-between, because there was reasons for you losing those opening 3 games, certain players not being available, early stage of the season, playing for 2 very difficult teams. But equally, you weren't as good as your performance was. Like, overall, you're not as good consistently as you were against Tottenham, and the Brighton performance served that. That's why I think a C to C- is a fair grade, because it's not a fail, but it isn't a higher mark. It's that in-between kind of stage for me. Viewers, what do you think about Arsenal's start to the season? We'd love your views. We'd love your opinions on how they've done. What would you grade it? Get your comments in. We have some more super chats here. Man like Sass again says, then why did we talk about Virgil van Dijk at his prime and not about Kante? VVD is not a goal scorer. So again, like I've said, every now and then you'll get a defender, you'll get a fullback, you'll get a certain player that will dominate the limelight for a period of time. But overtly, we always go back to attackers.
And
it always happens.
He changed Liverpool. Like, there's also, like, he's been the player that they've spoken about that changed Liverpool. When you think about that turn of direction from just being top 4 to winning things, it's Virgil van Dijk. And I don't think Chelsea thinks that of Conte, even though he's been a loyal servant for a very long time. I think there's a different narrative around Virgil van Dijk than there about Conte.
Yeah, we've got a ranking show at 9:00 tonight where we're ranking the Premier League's greatest ever wingers, wide players, inside forwards. So make sure you're tuning in at 9 p.m. tonight to the Football Terrace if you're watching now. It's going to be a great debate. Popularity is key in this. And certain players, no matter how good they are, if they're not the most popular figure at your football club, it is highly unlikely that the media outlets and rivals are going to talk about that individual as well. Man United have suffered for it during our peak time under Fergie. There are certain players that were our best players. Like, I was doing some, I can't even talk about it. I want to ruin the show later. But one of the things you're talking about there is the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Jordan Henderson as examples at Liverpool. I feel have been more of the Liverpool-based media darlings than Mo Salah. Mo Salah has not had enough credit from the Liverpool fan base. I mean, there was an 18-month debate over him versus Mane, And all of Mane's supporters calling Salah greedy, doesn't pass enough, not good on the eye. Like when that's going on about your player, you're never going to get the mainstream media and the wider people to fully get behind him. Like there needs to be, when it comes to certain Liverpool players, every single Liverpool fan is on the same page. So when it comes to Kante as well, Kante's been brilliant. But when Kante was in his pomp and doing his best things at Chelsea, Chelsea fans were bigging up Hazard. Hazard was the star boy. So everybody else played second fiddle. You know, at Man United, when we had the likes of Paul Scholes dominating midfields, we had 2 or 3 other stars that were the poster boys. So nobody spoke about him. You know, and that's what happens. If you're not the poster boy when you're in your pomp, you almost get forgotten about a little bit. And generally, we focus on the attackers. But in some cases, it doesn't happen. Sass back again here says, and just the fan base argument is overrated. Right now, Chelsea is bigger. Any player in Europe would want to play for Chelsea over Arsenal because we are bigger, is what Sass has got to say. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. Another one here says, off topic. Oh, hang on a minute. Something popped up on my screen. But why doesn't Eleanor appear on the terrace anymore? Also, great channel, man. Keep up the good work. She's been on the Friday night on the terrace show twice in the last 3 weeks, and she called in after the Spurs game this weekend. Thank you for the super chat. My feedback is watch more of our content, please. Then because Eleanor is definitely on here as well. There was a super chat from a member comment celebrating 12 months as a legend and super fan from Mohammed, who says Chelsea are bigger than Arsenal. They have won 2 Champions Leagues. Arsenal are yet to win one. I'm sorry to say it, but Man City will be bigger than Arsenal as well if they win a Champions League at some point. Z here also says Arsenal equal ungraded is what Z Gould.
That's kind of how I felt, like incomplete grade. Like, you know, it's like they did some work, but
like,
it in, and there was mad.
They wrote their name. They wrote their name on the exam paper, but they just sat there twiddling their thumbs. We don't know what to do with it. I hear you. We're going to move on now. We're going to move on and talk about ladies and gentlemen, what team should we do next? What team should we do next? What team should we be grading out of the big 6? We've done Tottenham. We've done Arsenal. If you're only just now tuning in, who should we do next, and who should we speak about? The first comment I read is who we're going to go to. I'm waiting for someone to write a name of a club in the comment section. No one's done it yet. Man City. That's the first one I saw was Man City there from TT.
Okay.
I'll start on Man City. I'll start on Man City. So
I was ready to go. You go ahead.
Oh, well, you went first the other time. I'm going to go first now. Do you know what I mean? Equal opportunities and all that. Yes, so we're going to do this right. We'll do it right. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this about City. They're still playing their same football. They're still up near the top of the league. They're still Manchester City. They still look good. But when I look at them as a club so far, I didn't believe it when people said it. And it's something I feel like I was wrong about in the summer now. I feel like Jack Grealish was the wrong signing and they should have got themselves a striker. Because when I look at them and I review them and I think about them, the biggest disappointment, and again, the biggest surprise is coupled into one thing. They have no gunman. They have no finisher. They have nobody that's putting these chances away. When I look at the games that they've drawn or lost this season, I think about the game against Spurs. If they have a proper striker, they beat Spurs. You know, yes, they went and slapped Arsenal 5-0, but then, you know, they scraped past Leicester 1-0. They lost to Leicester because of no goal scorer in the Community Shield. They drew with Southampton 0-0, couldn't score. You know, they scraped past Chelsea 1-0. Chelsea just got it wrong on the day. Like, Chelsea had a bad day in the office, but still, City only scored 1 goal. And yes, they scored 2 against Liverpool, but they should have scored 3 or 4. So when I look at Man City, I'd grade them a B+. The reason I wouldn't put them into that A category is with how they've played, the opportunities they've created, they shouldn't have dropped any points yet this season. None. They were not in the games they've dropped points in. They were the better team. They just lacked the gunman to put it away. I don't see that. Raheem Sterling looks lost. Jack Grealish, he's gonna create, but he isn't gonna. Jack Grealish is not gonna score more than 10 league goals this season. He's just not gonna do it. They don't have a striker. They need to buy someone in January, as they may find themselves struggling to win the league title. defensively, they look okay. Yeah, I mean, barring what Mo Salah, Mo Salah like violated them. That would be my grade, a B plus, because they lack that finisher. They lack that firepower up front. What's your take?
You definitely looked at my paper in the middle of the test, because that's all I was going to say. Literally from start to finish, I'm looking at my notes and I'm like, wow, okay. But it's pretty obvious. I mean, I think this is an obvious one. I don't think anybody, I mean, I know some City fans will be like, okay, well, we do have they have scored quite a bit of goals, but again, it's just like you said, 5 against Arsenal with a red card, 5 against Norwich, 6 versus Wickham, 6 versus Leipzig, they got a red card. Like, and then all the other games were very close, scraping it or not getting anything because they could not score. And I think when you watch City play now, and I think it was very, very obvious when they played against, I think it was PSG, that if you limit their ability to play throughout the middle of the pitch and you limit them to the wings and make them cross balls in, they don't have the physical presence or the centrality up top to get crosses. And that's what PSG did. They limited them to those crosses out wide. And I'm like, that is the template to beat City. Flood the midfield. Don't let them play through central spaces. Very difficult because they're great players. But when you look at them, it's not only that. It's the fact that they don't have a striker. And then the fact that you can tell that some players are just ready to, this is projection, but you can just tell that maybe some players are looking to move in a different direction. Sterling, Mahrez, they look like players that to me are like, I'm ready to go, So I think they have some issues. Great team, still doing their thing, but they're not going to be able to score. They don't look like they're going to be able to score enough goals. So I agree with that.
Yeah,
plus,
and it's not scoring enough goals at the right time. So the point is, you take the 5-0 against Arsenal, great. You take the 6 goals they scored against Wickham, the 6 in the Champions League. They'd much rather have scored 2 goals each in those, only 2 or 3 goals less in those games, but scored another couple of goals against Liverpool, scored that goal against Southampton because they'd be in a better place. I'm not attacking how they play. How they play is brilliant. How they performed on the pitch compared to the maddest thing is they've passed the eye test, but they haven't passed a productivity test for me yet. And that's the difference for me, when I look at Liverpool right now, their efficiency, their rampantness in their attack is what stands them apart from how they've started for me. But viewers, we'd love your thoughts. We'd love your feelings on that. How would you grade Manchester City? Remember, get your super chats in, your questions or anything you want Jess and I to discuss during this show today. Make sure the like button is being smashed. It's very important to us you do it. Sass is back again here, showing big support to the terrace today. Says, I think that Salah and Kante are very underrated for the fact that they are not hugely present on social media and the lack of talking within the fans. You are bang on. Again, I will use this example because he won't be coming up later. If Paul Scholes was less of an introvert and was an extrovert, if he was better looking, if he was a bit of a model, if he was more fun. I mean, I hate saying this. He doesn't come across like the funnest guy. He might be privately, but he's a bit bland. And when it comes to the players that resonate with people, that people love, the personality is key. One of the things about Sergio Aguero, the first time I heard him talk ever was in his last game for Man City when he got interviewed by Martin Tyler. And I'm like, that's the first time I've heard his voice in 7-8 years? There's no personality. So people don't remember you as much. Where I think about Thierry Henry killing it, but he was everywhere. He was Vavavoom adverts. He had the merchandise. He had the swagger. He had the talk. He had everything. Like, I'm a Man United fan. I look at him, but like, I hate you because I think you're so great. Like, and David Beckham wasn't as good as Giggs or as good as Paul Scholes. But he was the poster boy, so he was spoke about more. So I think you're bang on there. Yeah. Mario says, hi, Terry. Has Ollie had a medical condition that prevents him from attending the technical area?
It's so funny seeing him up in the stands. Like, he does have like a little signature vibe where he's like, I'm not going to be in the technical area shouting. And I don't do that. I'm gonna sit up in the stands with my little screen and be chill. I think that's good. That would make people upset because when you're sitting there and you're watching him and you're like, you're freaking out, you want him down in the technical area. I think it is funny that he does that.
Yeah, I'm one of these people where I agree and disagree. So I don't think it makes you a better manager doing that. I don't think it actually. I think you need to do it at times because I see other managers criticized for being, doing it for the cameras, doing it for the cameras. So there's criticism in both ways. But for me, I sometimes feel like he is doing it for the cameras also. It's like, I'm going to sit here and look like I'm cool as cucumber. But the worst bit for me was the other day. I normally don't get triggered by the smiles, but when he stuck out his bloody tongue, like he's laughing, and then it was, well, for me, we're losing. When you're drawing at Old Trafford with a few minutes to go, that's a loss for me. And it was Harry. You know, it reminded me of, this is going to sound so horrible and warped. Do you remember that meme of Bill Crosby looking and then going back the other way? Like, you ever seen that where he looked? It was like he was smiling. He looked away, and then when it's like, yeah. He did that. It's like, what are you doing? Like, read the room.
He does do really funny things.
It was so mad. It just reminded me of that Bill Crosby meme. And I'm not comparing the two people. I'm saying the way it was like, yeah. Like, where are you putting your tongue at? Like, was he talking? Like, honestly, that's what I do when I'm chatting to Freya or Jax or Archie. It's like, then I'll do it. Don't do that, mate. Whenever I see him do those things, I worry for him because I know social media is coming for him. UO here says, maybe City need a striker. I don't know. But the way they use their midfield to dominate Chelsea and Liverpool at times, a striker may change that.
I mean, so basically, I'm trying to figure out, are you trying to say that if you bring in a striker, that'll change the way that they play their game and it may hurt them? I don't really think so. I mean, you think about the way that Aguero played. I think they need a central something there, even though they play basically with like 6 forwards, just switching positions. I get that, but like they need something central. They need something at the very top. They don't have it. And so they will have to change their game. I mean, if you think about Liverpool, when they introduced like Thiago into the team, it threw things off. Adding Jota into the team, throw things off because of the way that they used to play. But I think they'll get something that they just don't have, which is when Mahrez is putting in crosses, when Bernardo Silva is putting in crosses, when they're limited in central spaces, they can do something different. Right now, even though they do a lot and they're a great team and we're nitpicking, you have to say that they look blunt, and that's scary because good teams that are prepared will be able to stop from doing what you want to do. So I do think it would change their game, and they would they dominate possession. We know that. They'll strangle you with possession, but you can have all the possession in the world. If you can't put the ball in the back of the net, it doesn't really matter, does it? You know, so, and it depends on what kind of striker they get. If you get a Harry Kane's great on the ball. It's not going to stop them from being able to play the tiki-taka way that they play. Like, you know what I mean? It's not going to hurt them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Great shout there, Jess. CFC Florida says, love real football talk. Thanks, Terry and Jess. I really appreciate that super chat. A lot of people asking about the Newcastle takeover. Get the super chat in to ask that question, please. We're going to respect the other super chatters as well. We'll do some member chats while we're here quickly before we move on with this. I'm gonna try and find ones that are asking us questions rather than you guys talking to each other. I do enjoy watching you guys talk to each other. What are we saying here? Terry, these Geordies are talking with chest, and they should. Their new owner is worth £320 billion. If they spend and invest that right, they'll get massive. It's going to be huge. And I'll tell you who it's scary for. If Man United, City, and Chelsea, relax, because the incomes of our clubs or our owners mean, because of FFP rules, they're not. If FFP goes, then everybody barring Chelsea and City panic. If FFP in some variation stays, then everybody else outside of those big three I've mentioned worry, because again, if this is what I would say, if you're like an Arsenal, if you're a Tottenham, if you're a Leicester, anyone that's got ideals of breaking into the top four, panic. If you're Liverpool, like, you're going to continue to be outspent until Manchester United bring in a world-class manager. You'll probably finish in front of them. But yeah, Newcastle look like they're going to try and do the business here, and it could be huge for the Premier League. It really could. Just check out Charlie. Is it Pantino
Charlie
for Arsenal?
Patino.
Arsenal. I was his football coach and PE teacher at school. Star in the making is what Mario says.
Yeah, amazing young talent. We do this, but at the same time, he's so far away from the first team, and people are trying to force him in now because they hate Xhaka and Elneny. We'll calm down just a little bit. Like, he's not ready, but he's definitely up there, But we have so much good talent in our youth system. I'm not surprised that he's there.
Yeah, the comment here says Jessie's only flaw is that she supports Arsenal. There we go. Smash the like button for us. Smash it now. Roman is back in London. I'm not surprised. They were always going to sort that out for him. Like, there we go. So smash that like button for us. Let's get this past at least 500 likes while we're live on the air, please, ladies and gentlemen. Next team, viewers, we want you to pick the next team for us again. We're left with Chelsea, Liverpool, and Manchester United. The first comment I see, the first club I read. Get your comments in. That is what we'll touch on next, and we'll do our grading. So far, Spurs with a grade C, Arsenal C-, and Man City with a B+ start. Terry, the hair is coming on nicely. Trust me, I haven't even had the hair transplant yet. You wait till I get that done. Consultation next week. And do you know what they said to me? I sent them some pictures, and they were like, "You're not that bald. You've got a lot of hair in the areas that like you get the hair taken from." They were like, they sent me like a gram. My hairline's going to be here, Pete, back where it used to. I can't wait. When I turn up one day, I take my hat off and I've got a proper hairline. I'm going to feel 10 foot tall.
Oh my gosh.
Can't wait. We're reviewing Chelsea next. That's the first team I read that's come through on this one. Chelsea.
I want to start.
No. All right, go on then. You start. Go. Go.
No, I want to start. No, I just wanted to. I wanted to at least get what I've been disappointed by, because I haven't done one yet. Because we said disappointment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could do the grade, but Lukaku. I know this could sound crazy, but Lukaku is great. He scored 3 goals so far in the Premier League and 1 in the Champions League. That's awesome. But he blanked. He blanked against City, Juventus, Liverpool, and Spurs. And again, that was something that was brought up many times before Chelsea bought him, is can he play in big games? And I think that those are big games that he maybe fell short in. I watched the Liverpool game. I didn't think that he was great in that game. I think that he left a lot to be desired. And it's good for you to be able to beat, the Aston Villa score against those teams and all of that, but you still have to be able to show up in the big games, and he just hasn't yet, So I would say that he's a little bit of the disappointment, even though I like him a lot. That's something you have to look at. But yeah, they haven't given up a lot of goals. Like, they're so good defensively, it's actually scary that they just don't give anything up. And top of the league, already played Liverpool and Man City. Didn't really get probably the results that they wanted, but still top of the league nevertheless, So besides Lukaku looking like he does need to step up against those big teams, Chelsea look still like the title favorites for me, and so, yeah.
Yeah. Do for me, when I look at it, would I say I'm disappointed in Lukaku? No, what I've seen from Lukaku, he just reminds me of Man United's Lukaku still. Some really good moments and some really funny moments. There are some times where his first touch is still a pass. There are some times where he just gets it wrong. But I also find that that's because I'm looking for it. I'm almost...
Yeah.
There are certain players, like I do with Bruno Fernandes. I'm not annoyed about him because of this. But when I look at... like Bruno, I panic about him losing the ball because I know that's what people are going to focus on. When Lukaku's first touch is bad, I'm like, that's all people are going to focus on. Rafael Varane, any little mistake, I'm like, that's the focus. There are certain players where there's a narrative that's created and no one's going to let go. Poch being a bottle job. It's until he consistently doesn't bottle things over a 4 or 5 year period, it won't ever go away. But overall with Chelsea, if I'm really blunt, best team in the league so far. best team in the league, the second highest goal scorers. For everyone saying they lack creativity, only one team, Liverpool, scored more goals. They scored 15 goals. They've lost one match. That's the only bad performance of the season. They lost one game and they just got it wrong. They just got it wrong against City. They got it wrong. And even then, they still had chances when they went a goal down and they think, oh, it nearly happened.
Yeah.
They drew with Liverpool. But it was one of the first times in 2 or 3 years. Obviously, we had a good year and a bit with no fans. But it was the first time in years I've heard the Anfield faithful scared of a club. The Anfield crowd, you could hear it. All the You'll Never Walk Alones and all the songs and the cop giving it the big one before the game started. 15 minutes in, you could hear talk. And you know what they were saying? It was, these guys are good. You could hear the nervousness in the air. And Chelsea were brilliant. And of course, Liverpool's still dangerous. When you play Liverpool is like watching heavyweight boxing, right? It don't matter how much you're dominating Liverpool. At any point, they can land you on your jaw and knock you out. So they're there. Stupid red card. Silly, really, from Reece James. And that was instinctual. If he lets it go, they concede then. I still think they win the game. And it went wrong for them. So they had not a bad decision, but they had a red card go against them. And then they had one bad performance.
I think they would have beat Liverpool too. When I go back to that game, I just think, I know Liverpool fans, you love your team, but Chelsea was pretty good. Like, they were confident against, and what scared me the most is that they had less in the midfield and they were dominating it. They had 2 midfielders and you had 3 and they were dominating it. Their biggest asset is Tuchel, like, by far. Like, you know, he's a special manager in form right now. And the way that he can change things mid-game and make things work and get results, that's the biggest thing in football. It's beyond the way that you play, the style and all of that. He makes changes and gets results. And I mean, he's shocked me. Like, he's been a big surprise for me, not this season, but when he came in, I was like, from PSG, you know, he has his issues with management and all that kind of stuff, but he's been flawless.
I agree. And my biggest surprise has been Chelsea fans panicking. My biggest surprise with Chelsea all year has been Chelsea fans panicking at back-to-back defeats in the Prem and Champions League. Maybe we're seeing the weaknesses in Tuchel. Shut up. It was a couple of bad games. And as you say, the greatest manager in the history of the Premier League, Sir Alex Ferguson, had bad runs, made bad decisions, got things wrong. We're far too quick now as a fan base. A player has 3 or 4 games, first 3 or 4 games in the Prem, doesn't perform, flop. You know, manager does really well for a year, has a bad little run, told he's overrated. We're always so hyperbolic in this stuff. And I remember I did that once with Pepe, and I literally released an apology video just to my audience, not to him. You don't care who I am. Saying, do you know what? Let me just retract everything I said. I don't know what made me do it. It was a heat of the moment thing, and it was stupid. But I completely and utterly agree with you. Chelsea, for me, have been absolutely astounding. There's still areas to improve on, which is why I'm grading them an A. I'm giving them an A. I think I tweeted A star. I've changed my mind slightly because I still think there's a level to improve. Another level they can go to. But I think they're an A. They're an A-class team. I think they've been absolutely brilliant. They're sitting, as we say, top of that league as it stands right now as well. We have some super chats here. Todd says 10 men for a half versus the Liverbirds, or as Sonny calls them, the Redbirds. Let's do some more of these. There's a few people spamming, so I may have missed some of these super chats now. I'm going to go and put the chat into slow mode. I'm very sorry. That does deter, and subscribers only to chat. That literally stops these spammers, and I've got to do it because it means I miss putting the super chats on the screen. I don't like that. But AMT says, if Arsenal start buzzing with all the right players, can Arteta bring them to the next level or two? Jess, you can answer that one.
I like the players. I can't lie. I do. I like the players. I can see something with these players. They still need to improve. Obviously, some of them are probably not going to make it. You're not going to bring in 6 players and they're all going to make it. But ultimately, I think the core that we have can be good. With Arteta, I just feel like he's a part of the project and he has to improve in order for anything to come to fruition. So although I think he gets a lot of things right, and when he gets things right, people criticize him or don't give him credit, he does get things wrong. And some of the things that he does are repetitive and they keep happening. And so I'm not sure. I think Arteta is the guy that's kind of going to get us that foundation, get us the players, get the joy back at Arsenal. But I think when you look at somebody like Graham Potter, who is probably not a manager that Arsenal fans would want, I think even though they try to do similar things, Arteta and Graham Potter, I think you get better results from Potter because he has more experience. And so I think the experience factor is what will always hold Arteta back. And even though I think he's done as good as he possibly can with the team that he's got, being a new manager, when you say the next level, what we're talking about is get into top 4, and then that next level is to try to compete for the title. I don't know if he has that in his locker just yet. So I don't want to project too far on Arteta because I still see the same mistakes that he was making last season and he's not really correcting them. That's just me. Like not matching up 3 at the back teams. Why are you not doing that? That's just simple stuff. So I don't know. I like the players, but Arteta, I'm still like, who knows about him really?
It is, and I think the thing about next level, which is really key to remember, is the next level can kind of be a number of things in the sense of you may start winning a few more games and winning more points, but what have your rivals done? You then need to stay on their coattails and keep improving and be ready to pounce. It's the staying power. It's staying very good until there's an opportunity for you to slip in. Sometimes you can improve massively, but you're still not better than the best team in the league. But you need to be ready to pounce at that moment in time. Because if Man City maintain their Centurions level, Liverpool would never have won the league.
Yeah.
So and that's an extreme example, but it stands true. Comment here says Lukaku's presence is similar to Drogba. His presence is always giving away for others, but they are not converting or taking advantage. He will improve, is what V's got to say. Selection. This is at Todd Miller. Is that a shock? Liverpool find it hard to break down low blocks. 10 sitting on the pen isn't a shock. They didn't score, is what Selection's got to say.
Well, the thing is most teams struggle with low blocks. I think every team thinks they're the only team that struggles with it. Everybody, if you have 10 men behind the ball, you're going to struggle. In the end of the day, I think it's a very difficult thing. And Liverpool, I mean, I don't know. Chelsea are just, if we're talking about that game in Chelsea, were they sitting in a low block? Like if that's the game that they're talking about, I just think everybody's going to struggle with that. And I think that's what Tuchel has to his advantage is he knows that if you block really good footballing playing teams and you block their space, you always have the opportunity to keep the game close and then nick it. And that's just what they do. I don't know. Yeah. Do you think their luck will kind of...
Who?
So when you think of like, a lot of people are saying with Chelsea is like at some point, he's going to have to change the system from a 3-back. They'll get found out playing this low block and counterattacking style type of thing. Do you think that will run out and he'll have to change things, or you think it's sustainable?
No, I think it's sustainable in the sense everybody has to. I think you have to change things up at some point as a manager, personnel, formations, systems to a degree. Unless you have a monopoly within the league and you have all the best players, you don't necessarily need to, because Liverpool kind of got found out a little bit for a while. People were blocking their attacks coming down the wings. They were exposing the higher line, and and things have been rejigged a little bit now. And then you couple in a few players being out of form, and it was like, they've been exposed, they've been found out. And then you make some subtle changes. You throw in a few new players, or you get some players return from injury, and it changes. He's been doing it too long already for it to be found out. If he does it for 2 or 3 games, and then I remember once LVG started utilizing Fellaini, used to like put him almost like a secondary striker. We were doing these long balls out to the left hand side of the box, and he was bringing them down, and it worked for 2 or 3 games. And it was like, and for 2 or 3 games, it was like finally we're seeing the best Fellaini. And then we played. I want to say it was Chelsea. I think they stuck Kurt Zuma on him. And then LVD never tried it again because people work. That's when someone's system can be exposed. I don't think Chelsea's luck is going to run out. I also think Thomas Tuchel's got the nous to change it, as he did. And the difference was he wasn't playing Man City, he was playing Southampton. But he changed it this week by throwing Werner in with Lukaku, and they look much better. And I still think there's a lot of improvement to come from Chelsea as well. Joshua here says Timmy Tuchel's magic will run out. Struggles to create chances with the front line. Even Man United can create more chances than them, is what Joshua said. We kind of touched on that already, Josh. We're going to move on to the next team now, but we're going to touch on Max's super chat to begin with. Max says Liverpool have been the most entertaining team to watch in Europe this season. I'll go to Jess first on this. Give me your thoughts on Liverpool and how you would grade their start to the campaign.
I think this is my time to get back on side with the Liverpool fans, since they hate me so much. And I'm feeling like at the end of the season, I'm going to look so dumb. But they look so good. They look so good. It's not shocking, but at the same time, it's like, no, they look actually really, really good. I think the thing is with Liverpool, they don't have a lot of weaknesses. They just don't. Their biggest weaknesses are when they get injuries, and we know that they will, but still, like, they're still a really good team. And I think what I like about them is they're not afraid to open up and take chances. They back themselves to be a little bit more open, and they'll outscore you. They know they will. Sometimes, maybe they don't get that last goal, like against Brentford, it was kind of back and forth or whatever, but that's what makes them so interesting to watch. There's a lot of teams that, like, if you look at Chelsea and the way Tuchel plays, and this is why I don't like to call Chelsea a park the bus team, but they keep their shape. They don't commit too many, and they don't really get opened up because they don't allow it. Liverpool open up because they back themselves, and that's why they're so fun to watch. And watching Mo Salah, I'm thinking that this can be a special season for him, that we may look back and be like, wow, that was amazing what he was able to accomplish. He looks like the best player in the world right now. And that's saying a lot with the likes of Ronaldo and Messi still playing. And then Mane, he's somebody that I really, really like a lot. I know that in the first couple of games, he looked like he was going to be really off form, but I'm sorry. I'd take an off form Mane over a lot of other players because I still think he's just that good. I just like Liverpool and the way that they play. I think they're entertaining, where I think if we're really honest, in the last couple of years, the football in the Premier League, although it's been competitive, it hasn't been interesting to watch because there's a lot of teams playing this anti-football style, and Liverpool has never really succumbed to that. They've always opened up and played, and that's what makes them interesting to watch, so yeah.
Yeah, do you know what's interesting? They have been brilliant, but I don't necessarily think your call for them maybe to miss out on the top four is wrong. You didn't say that they're not a brilliant team. You said that if they got... This is the one thing I still say for Liverpool. Liverpool started brilliantly. They've been a bit leaky, though. So they have conceded 5 goals in their last 2 games. They threw, that we shouldn't, as entertaining as they've been, I don't think we should discount the fact that they have looked leaky at the back in the last few games. There is no doubt about it. They look leaky. Yes, they drew with Chelsea. Most people with their hand on heart believe they would have lost that game if Chelsea hadn't have been reduced to 10 men. So that could have been another defeat. Mm-hmm. As an example. So they've drawn 3 of their last 5 games, Liverpool. So they haven't been perfect. You can't be perfect and you've drawn almost as many games as you've won this season. Their win ratio is just above 50%. They're a little bit leaky at the back. Man United's defensive line has been slagged off. They've conceded as many goals as Manchester United. So they haven't been perfect. But what they have had is the attacking system at Liverpool has clicked back into gear, as you've mentioned. And Mo Salah right now is on form the best player in the world, in my opinion, doing it in the hardest league. And, scored the goal on Sunday is one of the greatest goals in Premier League history because of who it was against, the magnitude of the game. The only thing that's going to take away from that goal and why it won't be remembered by outsiders as much, it wasn't a winner. Wayne Rooney's overhead kick didn't win that derby in a season where Man United win the league. It wouldn't resonate in the same way. But Mohamed Salah are doing something this season, as you've mentioned, which is astronomical. Chris here says a lot of ifs, Terry. My bro, football is about ifs. If you take ifs,
that's how you make a prediction, you guys.
Not even predictions. Football is all about ifs and buts. If you think about it logically, this isn't me having a go at you, Chris. Out of every football conversation you have, if you take away the ifs and the buts, football's boring. It's legitimately boring. And I was about to give you an if and a but. I was looking at the numbers today of Mo Salah in the Premier League. If he continues at his current output, I've always said that all top class players, from an attacking point of view, all have good to brilliant stats. They all do. There's none that are like, he was one of the best and they have bad stats. Mo Salah's outputs at the moment, if he continues for the next 3 seasons, including this year, at this rate, he will, in about the next 3 seasons, hit as many games for Liverpool as Thierry Henry played for Arsenal, and his overall outputs are pretty much the same. You're talking, it's going to be 5 or 6 in either direction, either 5 or 6 behind Henry or 5 or 6 in front of him. That's the level of performance that Mo Salah is putting in. Mo Salah is pushing Liverpool towards another title right now. And if he does that, and he's consistent for the next 2 or 3 years like this, Mo Salah is going into the GOAT conversation. That there is no doubt about it. And with a lot of Arsenal fans recently telling me that this era is harder than 15, 20 years ago, he's got a great shout of maybe being the Premier League GOAT. A shout here. On Liverpool, though, I would grade their season a B+. And the reason I'm saying B+ is because they have drawn 3 of 7 games. They have conceded those goals. And when I look at Chelsea haven't been as entertaining. They haven't been as potent in their attack, but they've only scored 2 less goals. But they just look so hard to beat. And Liverpool at the moment, I stand by your prediction to a degree. Liverpool will get injuries. And someone said to me the other day, no, it'll be fine. Bro, you've missed Thiago through injury for 2 games. And in those 2 games, you haven't won. You throw in 1 or 2 more injuries to this Liverpool squad. So for me, the disappointing thing with Liverpool is that the club haven't backed Klopp enough. In January, they need to buy someone and spend some money to protect against an injury. Because if they lose a star creator or striker or a key member of their midfield for any long periods of time, and I'm talking about winning the league, maybe not making top 4, they won't win the league for me.
Yeah.
If it's 2 or 3 big injuries, if anybody else is ready to pounce into the top 4, they might miss out. What might save Man United and Liverpool this year, if they get these injury problems or the managerial issue at the club, is that nobody else actually looks ready to challenge for the top 4. Everton and Brighton and Brentford will fall away, in my opinion. So it's an interesting one, but I would grade Liverpool a B+ for the start of this campaign. That would be my grading. What would you grade them?
I'll give them an A-, somewhere around there. I just think I get your point about they've given up goals, and they have. I also think that they've played harder teams than Man United as well. They've played more difficult opposition. So I think I would give them an A-, but I did want to ask you about Virgil van Dijk. Yeah. What do you think about him? There's in the comments, people should be worried about Virgil van Dijk. He doesn't look the same. Do you think that coming back off of that horrendous injury that he suffered, do you think that this is him just getting back into the groove? Do you think he looks the same? What do you think about him? Because he's really important to them, regardless of Konate and Joe Gomez and Matip and these great. Without him, they're definitely different.
I don't think he's been as good as the Virgil that before he got injured. I think he's looked good. I think he's looked very good. He hasn't looked like a terrible defender.
I'd still take him over.
Yeah. He's level. Let me just iterate that. His level is still. Yeah, his level is still high. But I'm talking about Van Dijk having. You may not get this reference. Before the injury, he reminded me of the pre-cut Ivan Drago from Rocky IV. There's a very special moment in Rocky IV where Rocky cuts the Russian. And the Russian was indestructible to that point. And then it was like, I'm not. I worry that Van Dijk, and what he looks like at the moment, is a player who's just a little hesitant. Maybe it's subconscious. Can I twist and turn and run and move and be as physical as I used to be? Could the knee go? That's something that's going to take him time to get over. You can train. I've had major injuries and gone back to training. I remember the first time I stepped back on the mats to fight again after having my knee reconstructed. I weren't scared of kicking anyone. I was scared of like a twist or a fall on it. It was almost like an innocuous thing. And I think that might be in the back of his mind subconsciously. But I think he's looked very, very good. I think he will be okay. And it just takes time. You have a year out of playing, plus the injury. I think sort of by Christmas, we could see Virgil back to his very, very best indeed. We have some super chats here. First one from Max. Max says, Liverpool have been the most entertaining team to watch in Europe. Sorry, I've already had that one. Sorry, I apologize. AMT said, how do people talk of a topic when ifs are not in the discussion? Of course, it's funny. That's the fun. That's the fun part of football. If Bruno keeps scoring, if Mo Salah keeps doing this, yeah, but what happens if this happens? Like, that's
if Arsenal
football.
Keep winning games, what can happen?
I have to just say something. I haven't read the article yet, but Chris Wheatley, probably the most sought after. Have you seen this?
I know what you're gonna say. Go ahead.
Have you seen the tweet?
The one about us in top 4.
Yeah, but it's not even that. He's predicted Man United outside the top 6 by December, by Christmas. And it's like, do you know what it is? Do you know, I've noticed with Arsenal fans, we're about to move on to Manchester United now, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you smash that like and that share button. Arsenal fans have got this real issue with Man United. It's sort of like, we're better than you, we're this than you, we're that than you. I just find it, it's a weird one to pick on with us. But yeah, I mean, for Man United to be outside of the top 6 by Christmas and to have Brentford, Tottenham and Arsenal in front of us, like, honestly, it would be like if the manager ain't sacked at that point, nothing's getting him sacked. But who knows? Because he's also predicted Arsenal will be on 41 points by then. Like, man, I don't know. I mean, it could happen.
Well, let me just say this, and like, it's for anybody who doesn't know. Before I ever came on the terrace, I did watch it before, and I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm like looking to see what teams people support, and I'm like, oh, there's a lot of Chelsea fans on here. There's some Liverpool fans on here, and then, I mean, I have to say, the people that used to just grind my gears the worst were Terry and KJ, and I couldn't figure out why. And then,
well, leave then. Go. We want you here. Like, do you know what I mean? The cheek of it. Sorry.
And I was like, why are they so annoying? And I'm like, it's because they're Manchester United fans. So I think it's just a little bit of that. For me, it's a little bit of that.
No, do you know what it comes down to? Like, Lee Gunner pulled on a really good point last week about who actually are our rivals. And Liverpool, like Arsenal, for me, for many years, I disliked more than Liverpool because I'm not from Manchester, and Arsenal were the club that we went in my childhood. We went toe to toe with. Then it moved on to Chelsea because you guys fell away. Chelsea were our rivals. Liverpool were always that historical rival. That, especially when I moved to Manchester, that rivalry meant a lot more to me because I was in the city. I was learning about the culture of the city and why they like all the reasons that all the Mancs I knew that didn't like Liverpool. They never even mentioned football. It was about the city versus the city. And it was like, I understand now. But yeah, like I get it. And listen, I can take it along with the best of them. What I find that the best is like you throw something back. But look, Chris Wheatley's definitely entitled to think that's going to happen. I'm going to read the article to make it make sense. There could be a reason in it. But the thing with it will be some people though, like take it. So they take an opinion from someone with a blue tick so seriously, like, yeah, but Chris Wheatley said it's going to happen. Bro, you don't know more than when it comes to predicting what's going to go on. No one knows. Like, do you know what I mean? No one knows. But we'll see. Speaking of Manchester United, though, give me your thoughts on their season so far and their grade, please.
Oh man, it's one of those. I'm not overly surprised at what's going on. I mean, the reality is you're not that far off, are you? I mean, 2 points off top, but you haven't played any of the tougher teams. But Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man City have kind of played each other, dropping points against teams that you should not be dropping points against. Looking like there's no, I think with Ollie, for me, it's that he has a system. There's a system there. But when it comes down to it and you play against a team that's really organized and understands the flaws and weaknesses of Manchester United and doesn't allow you guys to just counter, and throw attacking players forward and all of that, he struggles with making the right decisions moving forward. And that's been there the entire time. So it's not really shocking. Like, it's not shocking, but at the same time, having the caliber of players that you have, I just felt like you guys would be better. And I feel like, not that you guys are getting worse, but you're stagnant. And that has to be the manager. I don't see any improvement from last season, even though you've improved your squad. And that should be scary for you guys. So I think we have to be fair, though. I think when you look at Manchester United, you can see that they're probably just maybe a year or so off of the better teams, the top three. They're just, so you have to give them a little bit of grace in that, but still with the quality that you have, you should be a little bit better. So I would say that it's still inconclusive. You guys can go into this really difficult run of games, which Ollie tends to do well against better teams. I think he could get results. You know, you could think about the game against PSG. I know you guys won those, like one of his like bigger wins or whatever, playing against City, being able to take points off of them. So I don't look at that run of games and think that you guys are going to lose all of them. I don't think that at all. So it's inconclusive, but I would say, I mean, it's got to be somewhere like B minus C plus to me, somewhere in between there, because it's not really a shock. So I don't think you guys are like super underperforming by realistic standards, but you're still underperforming. You know what I mean? So it's somewhere in between there.
Yeah. Like, I feel like there's a few things to address. When it comes to the grade, I'm looking at what we gave Arsenal. I'm looking at what we gave Tottenham. It's a lower grade than those two clubs because the expectation for Manchester United in this particular season is higher. The expectation for Man United and Arsenal is always higher than Tottenham's every season. Has to be because of our reach, our history, our pool, our money in comparison to them. Because of the expectations on the United, the squad being ready to win a league title, I don't buy into this CDM nonsense of it. We still can't win without it. A world-class manager with this squad can challenge for this title. No doubts in my mind. No doubt at all in my mind. I wouldn't say we've gone backwards, but the expectation has risen. So it feels like you've gone backwards. Do you know what the effect I would give it is this? People still believe that when you open your parachute after you jump out for an airplane, you shoot back up in the air. You don't. In case anyone doesn't know, it's because the camera filming it hasn't undone its parachute yet and it's falling at a faster rate, but they're both still falling. You don't shoot back up in the air. That's what's happened to Man United. It looks like we're getting worse, but we're not. The expectation has just risen. It's an illusion that we've got worse. It's that you expect more from this team. But we've improved the squad with 3 top-class players and we're not getting the best out of them. Ollie's system isn't what's to blame. It's Ollie. I kind of said yesterday that there isn't a system. That isn't what I meant. And I thought about it some more and reflected. I don't probably spend enough time reflecting on my own club. Ollie's system is to be fluid. There isn't a set way of playing at every moment against every team. But it also means you should be able to integrate players a little bit quicker and easier because there is no set pattern that you do for every single moment in every single game. There is a fluidity and a freedom element to it with certain positions. He hasn't worked out yet how to get the best out of all the attacking options that he's got. And it's because he doesn't have the palette for it. He doesn't have the ability for it. He doesn't have the nous as a manager to work out the best way to operate and then manage the players in that way. The substitution on bringing Ronaldo and onto the pitch was fine at the weekend, but he should have kept Cavani on until we got that second goal. Then you take Cavani off. Got it wrong. By the way, the substitution against Villarreal improved us, but he left it until the 85th minute. He should have made that substitution 20 minutes earlier. He just isn't thinking. And I get he's got all these match winners, but he's got loads of them. And sometimes you have to sacrifice a match winner for another match winner. So it's like, do you know what? We want to keep Ronaldo on because he's the best match winner we've got. But we need Cavani on for the movement. But we also need a creator like a Jadon Sancho who's on the bench. Well, then it means Bruno's got to come off. Will he do that? Or will he sacrifice one of Fred and McTominay and make Bruno go a little bit deeper for 10 minutes and utilize Jadon in the 10 role? It's about him. It's not about the fans telling him what to do. Fans have got ideas, of course we have, but we're none of us, no journalists, none of us are football trained. And even if you've got a coaching badge, bruv, you ain't trained to understand it to that level. You're not. It's there, as in, we're not trained to find a solution for it. It's 100% going to work. We can all give suggestions. Ollie's drowning this season massively. So I would give us, honestly, I'd score us a D. I'd give us a D. I'd give us, even though we're 4th in the league, I would give us a D because our expectation is higher. Our expectation It's why I agreed with your C- for Arsenal over Tottenham, because your expectations higher than Tottenham. So you've got to have a lower grade, especially as you're below them. We're fourth in the league, 2 points off top, but I'm giving this a D because when I look at some of the teams that we've played, the level of performance against Villa and the level of performance, even in games we won against the likes of Wolves and Southampton, has to be better with what we've got in our team and squad. And I'm not allowing Ollie off the hook. I'm not giving him this pony little excuse that he doesn't have a CDM. It has to happen. Now, a comment here says, Ollie doesn't have a system. At least I haven't seen it yet. I think he just tells the players to go out there and play the United way.
It's simplistic. I think that's the thing, is it's not as in-depth and it's not like a Pep system or a Tuchel system where you can see it. Oli depends on the fluidity and the individual brilliance, which is not a knock, because he has such great players. So I don't think he wants to take away from it. I don't know if he even can, but I would just say that I'm assuming that he doesn't want to take away from it by introducing a system that would take away from some of the individual things. Because if you put Bruno in a certain type of system, like you look at like maybe even the way that they play with Portugal, he's not as brilliant for them because the system is different. Bruno is a free player. Jadon is a free player. When you have a bunch of free players that don't really play in structured systems, you don't want to take that away. And I think that that hurts him just a little bit, trying to manage those free players and not giving them a structured system. So there is something there. There is a system. I don't like them over the top. He doesn't have a system. He does. It's just based on fluidity and freedom.
The biggest issue with Ollie's system or setup or structure, whichever kind of descriptive people want to use, it's our positioning when we're in and out of possession defensively that costs us. We're in the wrong places, and that's something that can be worked on. The freedom to do what you want when you're on the ball is fine, because I believe in an element of that level of, Pep himself has said that his job as a manager is to coach his team to get the ball to the edge of the box. When the ball's at the edge of the box, it's down to the players to use their brilliance to break a team down. We do that quite well. What we don't do is structure ourselves where if we lose possession, the amount of times we get caught, and I hold my head when I think about it because it makes me stressed, where I'm like, why is everyone on the right and there's no one on the left, and we've now been countered easy? Those are the things.
You guys you look like an Arsenal team, to be honest. Like when we had all of our free-flowing players, and that's what Arsenal would say. Once you pass the halfway line, you guys just do what you want to do, and it looks great, but you're out of position.
And the amount of times you guys in the last few years I remember like between 2013 and 2015, the counter-attack against Arsenal was so easy. Yeah, you're absolutely right. AMT says, this is why I follow this channel, Terry. You're smart and speak a lot of sense, not forgetting Miss Jess. Thank you very much for that compliment, my friend. Rivalry with Arsenal. These two should not be uttered in the same breath. 13-3, no Champions League, not in the same bracket, deluded Arsenal fans. Let me just address that as a United fan. I'm talking about your rivalries as an individual stem from your experiences. So as a child, Arsenal were the team they were my nemesis. They were the ones that were challenging us for Premier Leagues. They were the ones that were challenging us for the supremacy within the Premier League era. And the maddest thing is, those 3 Premier League titles that Arsenal won were all in that. Well, I was an adult when they won the Invincibles. I was 18 years old, so I was an adult by then. But those 3 titles came in a sort of 8-year period where only Manchester United outside of that, like with Man United and Arsenal, every year were fighting for it. So just because they only won 3 and we won 5 maybe in that time period, I've got to look at the math. Like, it doesn't take away from the fact that they were our main competitors, and that competitive nature between us from sort of 96 through to sort of 2004, that's where the rivalry stems from, and it hasn't gone away. And for the older Arsenal fans, a lot still look at Man United through that light. And it was mad. Wenger and Fergie only got on in the latter years because Arsenal were no longer our competitors. And then suddenly they became friends. The Fergie, you think Jose and Wenger was toxic? Go back to when Fergie and Wenger were at each other's throats. It was mad. Yeah. Super chat here says the problem with United fans, whatever Ollie does, you guys complain even when he makes the right decision. Damned if he doesn't and damned if he does. B- is what Joshua says there. I wanted to ask you a question though, Jess. This has come up on a lot of channels in the last few days. I've seen the guys that Never a Foul. I've seen Rant say this. I've seen lots of people defend it as well, man, like Statman Baines. and a few others, saying that Cristiano Ronaldo is absolutely dead. He's damaging Man United. He's damaging the system at Man United, the fluidity, whatever expression people want to use. And that's people's opinions, and they're absolutely entitled to it. What's your take? Do you think Cristiano Ronaldo has been... I know we spoke about it on the show Monday night, but have you changed your mind at all? Do you feel like that's a fair criticism to say he's a dead footballer and he shouldn't be playing for Man United?
No. No. I do think that, the way that he came to Manchester United, I think to me is very clear. Like, there's no way Sir Alex Ferguson was going to allow this man to end up at Man City and potentially help them win a Champions League. I think Cristiano Ronaldo is an asset if you know how to use him, period. I think he's an asset to your team. Like, having a world-class player in your team is only an asset. I think the issue with Cristiano Ronaldo is that he's making it more obvious that Ollie doesn't know what he's doing. And that's just what it is. Like, you weren't better without him. You just weren't. You're not getting the results that you feel like you should be getting with him. So you think he's hurting you. But that's not what it is. Just having him in your team and realizing how poor the football actually is, and how maybe Ollie has come to the end of the road in terms of his career at Manchester United as a manager. I think that's more the issue. I have this weird thing about, I feel Cristiano Ronaldo is becoming a focal point, and it's not really him. It's Ollie doesn't know what he's doing with this group, so it's a weird one. I feel like he's not a dead player. I mean, agenda aside and all of that, he's great. He's great, but at the same time, when you introduce new players into your team that are of a certain caliber, you can't expect them to change your fortunes if nothing else has really changed. The main issue with Manchester United is not the level of talent that you have, it's Ole. And it has been that, so he's not hurting the team. He's just making it more obvious that Ole doesn't know what he's doing. That's all.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think, look, he's not the player he was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and nobody's denying that. And there are things that he doesn't do. The thing with it is this: it's if you buy him, we should know who and what he is. So you put him into a position within your setup that gets the best out of him. People say he doesn't dribble past people enough. Well, we don't. He's not there to dribble past people. He doesn't link the play up enough. Well, that's not his job. Like, his job is to be the final piece of that jigsaw where the ball falls to him within and around that sort of, within 15 yards from goal for him to bury it. You create those chances for him. There's no one else in the world better at finishing them. Yes, there'll be every now and then there'll be a good pass and be a good through ball, but you need the rest of the team to do the work around him. That isn't a problem. That isn't a problem if the structure around you is right. I kind of get that people get frustrated. I think what it is for a lot of people is when they think best player in the world, when they think world-class superstar, they think you've got to be able to finish and score from distance and dribble past the man and be technically brilliant still. I just think it's more of a football preference that's taking over. The irony in a lot of the comments, and I've said it for 2 or 3 days now, in fairness to Rants, because I'm not talking about Rants here, he didn't say it's killing the system because he doesn't think there's a system. A lot of Man United fans on Twitter, though, he's ruining our system and our flow. You're the same guy that said there is no system and flow, so how's he ruining it? I think that's why I think you're right, Jess. He's just highlighting how inept the manager is at the elite end of the spectrum. There's a super chat here that says, I'd love CR7 damaging my team, please. And that's the point. And you throw a Zidane or a Luis Enrique into coaching this team, and we up the system by 10, 15% efficiency, a bit more structure. We create an extra 4 or 5 chances per game for Cristiano Ronaldo, and suddenly it'll be like, oh, I'm so glad he's here. In the Newcastle game where we created chances, he was great, wasn't he? That's on the team to create those chances. And by the way, his second goal in that game wasn't some little tap in. He sped past the man with speed and power, shot the ball early, caught the goalie's unaware and put it through his legs. That wasn't an easy goal. So he can do it. We just got to create it. And we haven't broke those lines enough. So I'm sticking with my grade of a D. For Manchester United in there.
I feel like I was too nice. Now I feel like I was too nice about my grading,
It's just on you, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? Just pandering to those United fans. No, I'm only joking. Remember tonight, 8 p.m. We've got a members only stream on the Football Terrace, doing a little Q&A for half an hour for our members to come on and have a chat. We're going to be doing a couple of them a month moving forward. And also at 9 p.m. tonight, we're ranking the best ever wingers, inside forwards, wide players in the history of the Premier League. So make sure you are tuning in. Make sure the like button is smashed right now. We'll give you another 5 to 10 minutes of our time tonight. Any questions that you've got? Ollie would have been sacked by a proper owner, if we are honest. Absolutely. That's why I'm Glazer problems over Ollie problems every day of the week to real Manchester United fans. Always has to be. Always has to be. Fergie is killing United again. He's got Twisted has said there. Listen, Ronaldo's got 5 goals in 6 games. He isn't killing the football club. It's
no, but you don't, like, at this point, you could just, it's just that cycle. You know, you put him in there, he's not going to sit there and not put balls in the back of the net, you know, so he kind of bails Oli out. But at the same time, like, if he wasn't there, you guys would have lost some of those games, you know, so it's one of those weird ones. And somebody did ask about what I meant about Manchester United being a year behind the top 3. The only reason why we think that you guys should be challenging is because of Ronaldo. A lot of people's opinions about Manchester United changed the moment he came to Manchester United. You know what I mean? So I still think
agree.
that it's more, you guys are not there, but you can still challenge and be just a little bit off the better teams. You know, they're more equipped. You can still challenge with a better manager, but it's mostly about Cristiano Ronaldo coming. Then everybody says you should be challenging, when in reality, if you look at the squad without him, you'd probably think, okay, well, are they still the same as Chelsea? Are they still the same as Manchester City? Probably not.
I completely agree with you on that. Rakier says Ollie has a system in his mind, but he either can't express it to the players or he can't adapt it when the opposition counters. I agree. I think a lot of it comes down to articulation, because we've all had that moment where in life you say something and everyone looks at you like you're mad. Someone else says it, you get it as the same idea as yours, and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, I get what you mean," and it's like, that's what I just said.
It's the Tuchel Lampard effect. Yes. It's the Mount, is he a good player or not? Lampard loved him. He teacher's pet. Tuchel still played him. Okay, yeah, it gives him validation. We all know that Lampard and Tuchel weren't trying to do anything that, I don't think they were trying to do anything massively different. They both played pretty similar systems and all of that. It's just Tuchel knows how to get his points across to the group of players. I think Lampard lacked that. And then it's that second part of what Rack said is when because opposition, it's like you have tactics, but the other team does as well. They have tactics to counterbalance what you are trying to do to them. Yep. So you have to be able to respond. And I don't think Oli has that next layer. You know, if they respond this way, what is our response to that? He has the initial, okay, what I think the team is going to do. I'm going to put this team out there to counter this. I don't think he has that next layer, and that's what's holding you guys back. Tuchel has that layer because of his experience, and he's just a better manager than Lampard. You know, he can make changes mid-game that make a difference to get results. I think that about Arteta as well. I don't think he has that next layer in him. I don't, not yet. You know, I don't think it has to be, it works perfect from minute 1 and we just dominate the team. Like that's how, like if we go behind, I don't think under Arteta, if we go behind, we've won a game. And that's because he doesn't have that next layer. When things don't go right, he can't adjust. Ollie's the same, you know, so yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. I think it's communication is so key. One of the great things about Pep, one of the great things about Klopp, when you listen to them talk about anything, it's like, I could listen to you all day. Fergie, I could listen to him all day. The maddest thing is, Jose has lost his power for me as a great manager now. But you know, when he was doing that punditry for 18 months, listening to him was just amazing. It was like, he makes something so great. Managers make hard things sound simple, because football is a simple game. This is where I say, when I say about fans, when I listen to fans talk tactic half the time, it's like, why do you make it sound like brain surgery, bruv? Like, I hear words people use now, you know, referring to players as profiles, and they use really intricate, detailed words to describe things. And I'm like, I'm not even following what you're talking about. And you go break it down to simple terms, and it's like, oh, you mean doing a 1-2, but you call it something strange. It's like the greatest managers can explain something very difficult and they can use one sentence and it makes sense. And I think Tuchel and Pep and Klopp and Fergie and Jose and Wenger in their pomps could do that. I think the Lampards and the Ollies and the Artetas right now, they struggle. I think they probably overcomplicate things and people are confused. And that's the issue there. Sass says, a lot of hate on Chelsea these days on social media. These days, Terry, we must be doing something good indeed. Big up to you and Jess as well. Bro, whenever you become more successful, people hate on it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Would a fit, informed Pulisic work well with Lukaku?
What does that even look like?
Yeah.
What does a fit Pulisic even look like?
As an American, is that the view that you guys have of him over there, just not fit enough ever?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, and it's going to sound harsh, but availability is a skill as well. And if you're unavailable, you're pretty much useless. And he's like that for everybody. And every single time I see him get injured, I just think he's going to be one of those guys. And I rate him very highly, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's done enough at Chelsea to let us know that he would be a difference maker for Chelsea if he was fit. I know he was great at Dortmund, but a lot of players are good in the Bundesliga and really struggle when they get to the Premier League. You look at somebody like Werner, he struggles. So I don't know if I really agree with that. I think the interesting thing about Chelsea is what they decide to do with the wingers/forwards that they have with Callum Hudson-Odoi, with Pulisic, with Ziyech. These players are not really adding much, you know what I mean? But they're still great players. It's very interesting. But I don't think you can add Pulisic in there because what has he done except for you just have like little 3 to 4 game runs. That's not enough to say that if he was in the team, he would be that much better than what they have now.
Yeah, I agree. Dinesh here says, afternoon, Terry, what FSG have they have got the right manager appointment at the right time after Roy Hodgson got sacked, got Kennedy unfired, everyone that United and Arsenal are missing. I kind of get what you're saying there. Like, appointment of the right manager is so key to move things forward. And Rack says, thank you very much for that wonderful donation, Dinesh. It means a great deal to us. And that couples in with what Rack has said. Nangusman says management is 30% tactics and 70% communication. And, you know, I've had a lot of stick on the terrace in the past for comparing football to like normal work. It is the same. It's human beings are the same in most walks of life. You know, when I did leadership, that's what you were taught. Go on any leadership course. It's how you treat people, how you manage people, how you communicate, how you're perceived, what people think of you. If you can make people run through a brick wall and work hard for you, that's your job. And like my best bosses didn't do anything other than make me feel great. And then I did everything they wanted to be done for them. You know, if you're a great boss, like people laugh and you delegate everything, but you should be able to delegate everything to the right people. And then it's recognizing, and I gave the example the other night about Man United and why the Glazers are to blame if we don't improve from this point. Because, you know, I took a real life example. I had a compliance officer in the branch I worked in that was doing a bad job. In the short term, they were in trouble. I had to manage them. But if over a period of time, I didn't improve them or I allowed them to keep doing their job and failing, it's on me. And that's why leadership is the same, whether it's football, banking, schooling, education, religion, the corporate world. It's the same difference. And you've all had it. And you can all, some of you will sit in the comments and go, no, it's not the same at all. Think about the teachers and the parent and the friend and the boss that you listen to the most and the one you don't. Sometimes it's this person has no idea, but most of the time, it's their communication, behavior, or attitude that you do or do not like, and you stop listening to them. So they might know the business inside out, but it's the way we all had that teacher at school, and we all had that one teacher, maybe more than one, but we had that one teacher at school that even the naughty kids went yes sir to and did everything for them. That's because they could communicate in a way that made you respect and resonate with them, and then everything they said just made sense because you are 100% engaged. When you're 10%, 15%, 20%. Elsewhere because you're not listening because you don't get it or don't like it. Like Lampard's biggest issue, I don't think was communication. I think it was his attitude. You hear the stories of the way people felt, the way he treated them, the way he walked around the training ground like he was the big I am. People stop listening. And they stop listening. It's like, oh, you've had that work where you go, what did he say we have to do? I weren't listening. And that's, I think, the communication is massive. It really, really is. Sassy says, Terry, you didn't say my name the whole day. I reckon you don't watch anime. No, I don't, brother. I don't know. How do you pronounce that? Because you can read properly. How do you pronounce that name?
Sasuke? Sasuke?
I mean, that's not a bad guess. I don't watch anime, my bro.
I don't watch anime either, so I
respect
know.
people that do. It was never my thing. I've watched about 5 episodes of Dragon Ball Z. Is Pokemon anime? It's not, is it? No, it's not.
I don't think so.
Way off. I don't know these things are. Daniel said to me earlier, because he was talking about Ghost. He was talking about the Power. And I was like, I can't watch. I know Power's now doing all these new spin-offs.
Just end it with Power. Power was amazing.
Spoiler alert: if you're not at the end, please turn off now. But the way they did Ghost, Ghost is my guy. Firstly, let me just say what Ghost should have done by about the end of season 3, barring his daughter and his youngest baby, kill everyone and live your best life.
You're so annoying.
I'm not even gonna lie to you, right? The way Tash was at the end in prison, hair out, I was like, you deserve that. Because she's such a bad woman. She's the worst woman. The worst woman. Tommy, should have I know he's your best friend, but he's holding you back. Do you know what I mean? Your son, if Archie ever does that to me, trust me, I'm dropping him off a building. I'm joking. No, Jesus Christ, joke. Well, I'll tell you, he's going to kill his kids.
Gosh.
But yeah, what they did to my ghost, honestly,
oh my gosh, every guy wants to be Ghost or just loves Ghost. He ain't never did nothing wrong. He was never trash. He was a trash human as well. Come on, he was a trash human as well. They missed the whole part about him having a whole affair with a whole other person. But Tash is so bad.
No, but that kind of affair ain't an issue. That kind of affair is fair. Him and Tash were only together. She was with him for business reasons. So it wasn't real love while they were together. So if you get with someone and you know you're not really in love with them, you're only there because he's got the power, because he's got the money, don't expect him to stay faithful to you. If you get with somebody for any other reason than unadulterated, pure love, it ain't gonna end well.
I've never met a man that ever criticized Ghost for anything. It's always Ghost is the man. I'm like,
he's the man. He is. Because you're missing the nuance side of it. He wasn't, he knew why he was with his missus. He knew why he was with her. She was with him. Because whenever he wanted to get out, this is the point, right? This is why he was absolutely justified in getting with Angela and cheating, right? Because, and I wouldn't even call it cheating, I'd call it fair game. He wanted out of an industry that could see him dead at any second. Nobody gets into that game wanting to be into it forever. There should always be an out, because most people leave it poor, broke, dead, or in prison. He's like, we can get out, still be wealthy. She's like, no, you're going to get back into it and keep risking your life every day. Excuse me? No. That's the thing for me. Literally, she's the reason that everything went wrong for everybody. If she'd have let him get out, none of the bad things that happened would have ensued. It's all on Tash. All on Tash. And Tommy, because Tommy's a madman as well. By the way, if you've just started watching Power, I'm sorry that we've ruined it for you. It was great.
For you.
Joshua here says, question, so all those times we went back from behind, that was down to the players or Ollie? Because if that was the case, how can we come back against Roma? Listen, Ollie's done some... This is me criticizing Ollie and saying he isn't good enough to win us major trophies isn't me taking away things that he's done that are good. I'm not one of these people that says it's his fault when we lose and the players get the praise when we win. That's not Terry Flewers. That isn't the football terrace. People might say on here, we're an Echo Chambers channel. I praise him for both. If we come back and we beat Leicester and Liverpool, I will praise Ollie's performance as a manager. If he makes great subs and we win, I'll praise him. It doesn't change my overarching thought that I don't think he's good enough to win us a Premier League. When I'll know that he's good enough to win us a Premier League is when he wins us a Premier League, or at very least we go right to the edge and it's like we couldn't have done much more to win it. I'll put some more faith back in Ollie. That's where I think the balance is missing, but that's because the world is so hyperbolic now, or mainly black and white, isn't it? It's binary, as I think you've tweeted that. It's a great way to put it. It's binary. It's either you're Ollie out, which means you praise him for nothing, or you're Ollie in, which means you criticize him for nothing. And both those groups of people are weird and wrong.
And you know what the thing is a lot of managers, they deserve praise for coming back in adverse, situations. Everything is not going to go right. But when it becomes a pattern, then you have to look and see how you got there in the beginning. And I think it's a pattern for Manchester United, even last season, that you go down and then you come back. Either you win or you draw the game. That is a pattern that should be able to be rectified before you guys even start this season. There should be a plan not to go down. And I know what it kind of seems like to me, and maybe this from an outsider perspective, maybe I'm wrong, but you get in situations where you're underprepared, you don't have the right performance or the right attitude going into the game. He gets it wrong, and then he throws all the attacking players out there, and that pressure that you guys are able to put the other team under, sometimes they cave. That's great. But if that's every single game, then that's an Ollie issue, And so somebody was like, well, how is that an Arteta and Ollie thing when Arteta never comes back and never wins the game, but Ollie does? That's the level of attacking talent that you guys have. That's the individuals that you have. And Ollie needs to figure out a way not to go down.
Agree. And that's why the club's in a better position. And obviously Ollie has more pull. Ginger Fury, we already spoke about.
Wait.
I'm going to praise him for that. He has more pull. That's a managerial attribute. That's why Champions League Varane wanted to play for him. Ginger Fury
we still
here.
Calling him that?
Yeah, we are. He's okay. No matter how bad he gets at United, he's still won 3 on the bounce, right?
So he's still Champions League Varane.
Always for life. Thierry Henry doesn't score goals anymore. Is he not the GOAT anymore then?
I just love the way you said it and try to move on really quick.
Ginger Fury, what's your view on the Newcastle takeover? We kind of touched on this earlier, my friend. Thank you for the super chat. Look, there's going to be people that are against it politically. There's going to be things about the owner, the country that he's from, and their take and the way they operate. I've always been someone that's refrained from talking about that online because I don't do politics online. And I think if you start delving into, I'm not comparing these things, but I think if you delve into the owners of all sorts of clubs, what political parties do they donate to? What countries do they support? Where do they invest their money? Where have they made their money? What are their portfolios invested in? You can find not even shady things, but immoral things across, all types of people and owners and everything else. And I think that if we go down that route, then you have to draw a line and say, what is and isn't acceptable for owners? Is it like being a prince of a country that does X, Y, and Z? That's the limit. Okay, cool. But what about an owner that donates to a country that's committing atrocities? What about an owner whose portfolio of investments where he's heavily invested in the arms dealing industry? So he's companies that make him millions of pounds a year for his investments are selling bombs to countries that are killing innocent people. Like, how far do you take these things before you draw the line? I'm not going to discuss or debate that, but that for me is always my issue when it comes to these conversations. Everybody has a certain group of people in their political persuasion that they dislike, but then are very hypocritical when it's someone they like or it's on their side that does something wrong, and it's something like, oh, I can't talk about this one because I saw a good. Yeah, I'm not even going to go into it, but from a footballing point of view, if they're pumping money into the local area, if they're trying to get the best out of Newcastle, it could be very good for Newcastle Football Club. There's no doubt about it. If you look at what the Sheikh Mansour has done at Man City, what Roma has done for Chelsea, it could be great. And yeah, it's one of those things there. Comment here says, just a question, Terry. I'm balanced about Ollie. I hear you on that completely. But listen, everyone who's tuned in today, thank you. We're back live at 9 p.m. for the ranking show tonight. I'm really excited about it. The best wingers ever in the Prem. We have got like there's an entry level today, unless somebody can think of a caveat for it. To be in the conversation, 100 Premier League appearances minimum, and at least a Premier League or Champions League winners medal. You have to have one of those two things to even be in the conversation tonight. So join in at 9 p.m. Everyone bring a friend. Bring one friend each to watch it as well. That'd be amazing if you could. Jess, as ever, absolute pleasure having you on the show. Make sure you go check out She Knows Arsenal. Just type She Knows Arsenal. Go subscribe. Get that done right about now. If you like listening to Delusion about Arsenal, it's a great channel for that. It's jokes. Very good channel. Go check out one of the best in the business. Until next time, take care. Goodbye.